Hey, think about the very last thing you decided to buy. Was it a coffee? Maybe a new shirt? We make these little choices all day long, pretty much on autopilot. But what if I told you that behind every single one, there's a kind of hidden blueprint? Well, in this explainer, we're going to pull back that curtain and actually map out the fascinating science of why we choose what we do.
Every single day is just this constant stream of tiny decisions. Coffee or tea in the morning, tacos or pizza for dinner. They feel pretty minor, right? But each one of those choices is a little data point. And when you put them all together, they reveal this surprisingly detailed map of our desires. A map that's also shaped by what the world is actually willing to offer us.
And this is where economics comes in and gives us this really powerful set of tools. It helps us take that whole jumbled mess of wants and gut feelings and actually turn it into a clear visual map. So we're going to chart two key territories. First, what you truly want, and second, what you can actually get. Okay, so let's start with the first part of that map, your preferences. I mean, how do economists even begin to visualize something as personal as desire? It sounds kind of impossible, but they have this surprisingly elegant tool that's designed to do exactly that.
It's called an indifference curve. I know, that sounds super technical, but the idea behind it is actually beautiful and simple. Just picture a line that connects all the different combinations of two things, let's stick with tacos and pizza, that would make you equally happy. You'd be totally indifferent about which specific combo you got because they all give you the same level of satisfaction.
And this table here just makes that idea perfectly clear. So look at combination A. You get only 2 units of X, but a whopping 30 of Y. Now follow it all the way down to E. Here, you get 30 of X, but only 2 of Y. The whole point of an indifference curve is that you be just as happy with either of these totally different bundles or any of the options in between. The real insight here is all about the trade-off. To get more tacos, you have to give up some pizza if you want to keep your happiness level the same. But, and this is the cool part, notice how that trade-off changes. When you're swimming in pizza, you'll happily give up a bunch of slices for just one more taco. But when you're down to your last slice, no way you're going to guard that thing. This changing willingness to trade, that's what economists call the marginal rate of substitution. So now that we know what an indifference curve is, let's look at the 4 simple rules they always have to follow. You can think of these as the fundamental laws for how our preferences actually work. They're unbreakable. First up, the curve always slopes downward. This is just a picture of that trade-off we were just talking about. If you get more of one thing, you have to get less of the other to stay on that same level of satisfaction. It's like a seesaw of happiness. Second, the curve is always bowed inward, towards the corner of the graph. And the reason for this is really intuitive. It's about scarcity and abundance. The more pizza you have, the less you value each individual slice, so you're willing to trade a lot of it for another taco. But as your pizza stash gets smaller, its value to you goes way up. That shifting trade-off is what gives the curve its classic shape. All right, rule number 3, and this one is probably the most obvious. Higher curves are better. A curve that's further out from that corner means you're getting more stuff, and let's be honest, more is usually better. And this just makes that point crystal clear. Any point on that higher curve represents a combo with more tacos, more pizza, or more of both when you compare it to the lower curve. And that, of course, means a higher level of overall satisfaction. Simple as that. And finally, we have rule number 4. This one is an absolute. For the same person, 2 indifference curves can never, ever intersect. This isn't just a suggestion, it's a logical impossibility. But that just brings up the question, right? Why not? What's the big deal if they cross? What fundamental law of logic are we actually breaking here? Well, it's because it would create a paradox. It would literally break logic. That one single point where they crossed would mean that a specific bundle of goods gives you 2 different levels of happiness at the exact same time. Impossible, right? It would also mean you're equally happy with a small pile of stuff and a big pile of stuff, which totally violates that more is better rule we just talked about. It just plain doesn't make sense. Okay, so that's the map of what we want. But our choices aren't just about our desires. They're about what's actually out there for us to get. So now let's flip the script and jump over to the seller side of this whole equation. And this brings us to supply. Put simply, it's just how much of something a seller is both willing and able to sell at a particular price. It's that magic combination of having the stuff on the shelf and being motivated enough by the price to actually sell it. So what influences that willingness to sell? Well, it boils down to a few key things. New technology, can make it cheaper and easier to produce things. The cost of raw materials, what economists call input factors, that's a huge one. The price of other things they could be making also matters. And of course, how many other folks are out there selling the exact same thing?
Now, a really important thing to get is that supply is not some fixed number. It's more like a moving target that is constantly reacting and adjusting to the world around it.
Yeah, supply is not static at all. Remember those factors we just mentioned? Technology, costs, competition? Those things are always changing. And as they do, the entire supply curve can actually shift, which means the amount producers are willing to sell at any given price also changes. And here's exactly how that works. If production costs go up, maybe there's a new tax or something, the supply curve shifts upward. That means less is supplied at every single price. But if a new technology makes production way cheaper, the curve shifts downward. Now producers are willing to supply more at every price point.
Okay, but we also need a way to measure how much supply responds to a price change. Is it a little? A lot? For that, economists use a concept called elasticity of supply. It's really all about measuring responsiveness. So just how responsive is it? Well, it's a whole spectrum. On one extreme, you have something that's perfectly inelastic. Think tickets to a single concert. There's a fixed number of seats, and that quantity is not going to change, no matter how high the price goes. On the other end, it can be super elastic, where a factory can just easily ramp up production if prices start to rise. Most of the stuff we buy falls somewhere in between.
So let's just pause and recap. We've now successfully mapped both sides of the market. On one side, we have our preferences, our desires, which we can visualize with those indifference curves. And on the other side, we have the supplier's ability and willingness to sell, which we see in the supply curve.
So we've got desire on one side, and we've got availability on the other. We have our endless wants, and we have the market's very real constraints. The ultimate question, the one that drives everything, is this: what happens when these two powerful forces finally meet? That's not just a question. That, my friends, is where the real magic of economics truly begins.